What's up, PCP fam? Back in the lab, Event Stream Studios, PCP, Palmetto Crew Podcast. We're back for episode 3. I know we've been going for a minute. We had some holidays, had some things come through, but it's good to be back talking with fam again. So once again, I'm one half of your show. Gerard June, former Gamecock, 2002-2006, Spurs up, GC for life. My cousin here, Rodney Kinlaw. Go ahead and introduce yourself, cousin, and tell them where they can find us at.
My cousin said, Rodney Kinlaw, Penn State running back, class of 07. We are. You also can find us on Twitter at Palmetto Crew, YouTube at Palmetto Crew. If you have any comments, anything you would like us to talk about, you can email us also at palmettocrew@gmail.com. And make sure you subscribe to those buttons as well.
All right. So we got a little bit to get into today. So we've been going for a little minute. So we had Juneteenth, we had July the 4th, we had Father's Day. So we'll talk about where we've been, what we've been up to over the break, and then we'll talk about our fathers a little bit, and then we want to get into this Northwestern scandal. So I know you're a Big Ten guy. We got a lot going on up there, so we want to talk about this Big Ten and this hazing and kind of our experiences, do a little storytelling, laugh a little bit, reminisce a little bit. So, but we'll get into it. Ron, go ahead and catch up. Tell the folks where you've been, what you've been up to. How's everything been going over this hiatus? We've been MIA for a little minute. Speak to them.
I'll say the past few weeks just been working, spending time with family. Went down back to South Carolina to the old Stumper grounds. Drove out of high school and spent some time on the beach and with the nephews, and but everything was well though. So it was good to be back home and just being where everything started. Just a different feeling when you're back home, back in the Palmetto State, and yes, that heat was different. So yeah, but you know how that is down there. So it's the humidity, all that. So
yeah, it's definitely is that dry heat. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's likewise. So we Juneteenth, spent some time with the family. Got to get away for a little bit. For those of you, make sure you check out our bios, check out our profiles. So those of you who don't know, I do coach in the GFL, so we're getting ready to kick the season off. So trying to enjoy these last couple weekends before we kick it off and get going full speed in the GFL. But shout out to Gwinnett County and the league. Those guys do a good job running that. But Juneteenth, spent some time downtown with the family, downtown Atlanta, Centennial Park. Then we had July the 4th, or we had Father's Day, before that. So went back home, July the 4th, Father's Day, reached out to my dad, of course, gave him his shout outs and gave him much love. So, just on that accord, want to talk about our fathers a little bit and, how they poured into us and the impact that they had on our lives coming up and the impact that they still have today. I'm gonna kick it back to you, Ron, and talk about the great Rodney Kinlaw. We keep hearing about these stories back home about our fathers and how they were back in the day. So just kind of speak on your dad and how he poured into you, the impact he had on you.
I would say even like this, my dad. That's how it all got started. Just from him playing football with him, working with me, Courtney, Caleb, just everybody. So just him seeing what he did with football, just even growing up, seeing how he was built, his physique. I'm like, I always wanted to work out, started doing push-ups at an early age, just following his footsteps, wanting to get muscles and things like that. And even the stories I heard about him, how he didn't really have opportunity until like his senior year at Macedonia, and how he had like crazy numbers. I remember seeing an article where I think he said he had like 4 touchdowns and like I think it was like 400 yards or something crazy. I'm like, then I used to hear stories like, that ain't really true till I saw the article. I'm like, well, he's a little different. And you start going to the barbershop and seeing him push up 450 and 500 pounds, and just, you're young, you're amazed, but once you get older, you really see how much weight that really was. When you start lifting weights like that, it ain't nothing easy. So, but just, it's what he instilled with me, and just even education, and just know how it's not all about football, how you have to have a backup plan. And even with football, you got to work hard to be number one. You got to go give 100% every day.
Yeah.
So just how he instilled that in me, and just even him talking about your dad and how good he was at playing on the D-line, and he's always talking about how he'd get down and box you in the face and all type of stuff like that, just how it was back then. So even football's changed these days, and now you're getting kicked out for something like that.
Yeah, so both of us went back home, and we're from the same area, so our dads went to the same high school, and Ron's dad played running back. My dad played DN, and you know, every time we go back home, we go to the barbershop. You know, back in Alvin, South Carolina. So for those of you who don't know, we got something special coming up. We're gonna hit the barbershop up. We're gonna do an episode. We're gonna do where we from. You know, kind of reminisce a little bit, show you our high schools, different things of that nature. But you know, we used to go get our haircuts in high school, and you sitting in the chair, and they be like, "Yeah, your dad used to do this back in the day, and your dad used to do that back in the day." So I don't know about you, you know, he's Big June, I'm Little June. So you know, that still sticks today, moving forward. And you know, as far as my dad, you know, he just, you know, great father, great husband. You know, they just celebrated 40 years of marriage, July the 2nd. So nice. Shout out to Mama June and Daddy June, sticking through it and hanging together, which is rare nowadays. But you know, those, you know, our two fathers, you know, poured into us, and you know, both of us are fathers now, husbands, you know, trying to do it the right way, and pouring into our kids and into our communities, and trying to do things the right way. So you know, to all the dads out there doing what they're supposed to be doing, keep pushing on, keep grinding, keep being in your kids' lives, doing what you're supposed to do, and pouring in there, and being that leader, and that guidance, and you know, that presence there. And just to kind of pivot off of that, you know, so both of us went home 4th of July, so it was good seeing old classmates, family members, and you know, of course, you know, we're here in Georgia now, but South Carolina's always going to be home. And you know, from our side, you know, we eat a lot of seafood. We eat good when we go home. You know, I know Mom's gonna have them grits and sausage and eggs every morning, and eating that breakfast. So but yeah, just going back home, and being around family, and being there where it all started, and just all the people that poured into us. And you know, shout out to everyone back at Alvin. So got a lot of love about the show. So once again, make sure you follow the PCP, subscribe, like, but keep up with us. But you know, everybody back home is just so proud of, you know, what we're doing, and the podcast, and you know, just a different perspective, and just being honest, being real, and who we are and where we came from. So just kind of talk about being back home and how that was over the past week.
Just to follow up on what you said about being younger and you're going to get your hair cut, you know, it's Friday night coming up, what you going to do? So, you know, depending on what you do in the game, like, it's going to determine like how your Saturday going to go. Yeah. You're going to hear about it. If you go out there and run for 150, 200 yards, you're going to have a good Saturday. If not, you're gonna get ragged on, so you're gonna have to pick it up for the next game. So, but I think everyone back home, especially the barbershop, held you accountable, and they made you push harder. So you had people behind you that you wanted to make proud, and you want to let down. And you even pivot back to my dad, like we got to have him on the show, just the stories he talked about, just the barbershop, and just how he how he just talked about sports in that era, coming up, and just made everyone excited about it. Because before him, it was a few guys, but after I think he might have been the first from Macedonia, or one of the first to get a scholarship. Went to South Carolina State, and he even talked about back then how politics and other things they went through when coaches were hiding their letters and things like that. So even now we have a different opportunity. Even we had a better opportunity, but even now in 2023 it's a lot different. So you too, all that's different. So
yeah.
But yeah, just back when you were saying, just being back home, it's just a different respect, and it just made you level up. So you couldn't be average. You had to be better than everybody else. You had to stand out.
Yeah, and you know, it's not much in Alvin for those of you who don't know. So you know, it's a lot of great people that came out of there. So a lot of athletes, not only athletes, but businessmen and people that are doing their own thing. So you know, we went back home, like I said, we eat good. So you know, we love the blue crabs and the crab legs and the seafood. So we had blue crabs almost every day we were down there. So I want to give a shout out to Mr. Donovan Brown, T&D Seafood. So want to give him a shout out. So he's a fan of the show, PCP family. He's indoctrinated into the PCP family hood. So want to give him a shout out, in his Carolina Boy hot sauce. So he checks out the show. He watches the show with us. So check him out at T&D Seafood on Rivers Avenue, which is near the Walmart, for those of you who don't know, but it's in Rivers Avenue in Charleston, South Carolina. So he's got fried crabs, he got snapper, fried shrimp, so anything you can think of, he got it there. And you know, the food was hot, fresh, good customer service. So be sure to check him out. And once again, and we want to enlarge the PCP family. So if you have a business in South Carolina, Charleston, wherever, nationwide. So PCP is global. So if you drop and you subscribe, you like, and you follow the PCP, go ahead and put your business name in those comments, and we'll give you a shout out. We'll shout out your product. We're trying to expand our brand, expand your brand. We're all family. So once again, Ron, tell them where they can find us at on social media.
You can find us on Twitter at Palmetto Crew, YouTube at Palmetto Crew, and also you can send us emails at palmettocrew@gmail.com.
It is.
And just to pivot a little bit, let's get into this Northwestern and this Big Ten. I know even you asked me earlier in the week about Northwestern. When I was there, I was like, Northwestern, they were a team that they were good. They were a sleeper team. They would be good once in a while. You just never knew about them. You couldn't let your guard down. But after seeing the news and the hazing and things like that, and we both experienced, I would say hazing, but just I would say even initiation. But when you're going into college, it's different from high school and with the older players and getting you acclimated to things that's going on. But what I saw in the article and what's going out there, I didn't see or even heard anything going on like that. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's you definitely had to earn your stripes.
Yeah.
When you get on campus. So we spoke about this. So I started off as a walk-on. So my experience was different because I didn't get there until after camp was over. So I got there with the other freshmen, and then your experience was, you got there for summer camp that first year. Mm-hmm. So I know from my side, like I said, you have to earn your stripes. So I was fortunate enough, like I wanted to stay in state. So shout out to the older guys, when I got to South Carolina. But Rod Wilson, he was there at that time, who was a coach with the Kansas City Chiefs. We had Rashad Faison, Brian Elam, Rasheem Monroe. So those guys, we all played in the same area as far as high school. So when we got there, it was like, hey, we got another low country guy here. So they took me under their wing and, took me to the parties and showed me around campus and whatnot. So it wasn't really a hazing type of thing. It was just, all right, let's come in here and let's get together and, because a strong locker room is a strong team at the end of the day. So I got some other thoughts. I'm gonna kick it back to you, but from my experience, there wasn't that hazing type of atmosphere. It was, let's bring in our young brothers here, our young players here, and let's get them into the Carolina way, the Gamecock way, and let's show them how we operate, how we function, and let's keep this machine rolling. So that's how it was when I got there that first year. So how was your experience when you first got there?
I would say it was similar. Like you said, you was a walk-on, and I went on the scholarships. I went in a little earlier, so I was there before camp. I was there during the summer and just meet some other freshmen. Before I got there, I don't know, Kente. Kente was at Berkeley High School. He went to Penn State as a receiver, and knowing him in high school, I felt comfortable going up there. And we were actually roommates after my freshman year, so just being around Kente and him kind of showing me the ropes, I felt more comfortable. So it wasn't like I just went somewhere, didn't know anyone or know anything. So just having them here to show me around and being from the low country and just show me like where to go and what not to do. But just as far as like when you meet with the other teammates, they want to make sure you're there for the team. So you got to work hard. They're going to push you. And even you get to the limit in high school, you think you're working hard, but then once you get to college, it's a whole different level. So you think you're pushing hard till you get to the limit to where you get past it and like, well, I actually got through that, and it makes you tougher. It makes you better, and your teammates, they respect you for that. Instead of you come in, even if you're a highly touted recruit, coming in not working hard, thinking you got it. So I think they show you a lot of respect, especially if you're someone to come in and work hard. And as far as the hazing, it was an incident where we had some guys, I wouldn't say it was hazing, and I'm not going to go into details, but a guy showed up to camp with no eyebrows, something like that. So, but it wasn't no sexual and anything like that. It was just, it was fun, and I think these are older guys, and even they still kids, they 19, 20, and we come in 18, so they're having their fun with us. But it was funny until he got to camp and he couldn't catch it, but he was the receiver, and I didn't think about it, but when you run it down and the sun's being on you sweat, your eyebrows got to catch that sweat. If you got the eyebrows, you in trouble. So he was having a lot of issues that camp, so they did get a little bit of trouble just because he wasn't able to perform because of that. But yeah, that was as far as hazing. That's kind of like what we saw, but what I heard or saw in Northwestern, what I read, that was that was different.
That
was different.
Yeah, so just the kind of background, I know, people have seen it in the news and in the media, but so a former player sent an email to the I think it was the HR person or the compliance person at Northwestern University, basically outlining that, there was some hazing going on. There were some players that were being treated differently. They had a term called running, where they run on the freshmen. I won't elaborate on that word too much, but it was called running, and there was some naked bear crawls outlined in there as well. But Pat Fitzgerald, the coach at Northwestern, so he was a big time player at Northwestern. So you talked about this. He was a great linebacker there, won multiple awards. He's one of the most decorated players that came out of Northwestern University. But when the sense they came out, they fired him for 2 weeks. And then once the investigation started getting deeper and deeper, what they figured out is, where they said, well, you should have known about this. You should have had control of it. Different opinions on that, as far as as we know, a lot of things happen in the locker room, a lot of things happen on the team that the coach doesn't necessarily know about. But someone said there was a secret handshake over certain players, and those players were treated certain ways, and this is how all this hazing investigation came about. And I just read where the baseball coach got fired. Similar situations where he had a bad culture and players treated bad from that aspect. So from my side of things, when the freshmen came in South Carolina, so we had a talent show during camp every year, and it was kind of like, I don't know if you saw the Hard Knocks when they had the Ravens. I think it was a 2000 team with Shannon Sharp and Ray Rice. So we had a talent show like that, and the freshmen always had to do something. So it was always hilarious where we had players that mock coaches, and we had players. We had one guy that did the crocodile hunter. Rest in peace, Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. But he nailed it to a T. We had some guys that could sing. We had Kenny McKinley, rest in peace to him. But he had Steve Spurrier Jr. down to a T. So it was a good time. And I remember one camp I had surgery, and I wanted to get out of the hospital and get over there so I could see the talent show, to see what the freshmen were doing, and it was just a good experience as far as that. And I remember, we'd be in the locker room, and it was a dry erase board. And to all the former Gamecocks out there listening, I know some of y'all had a hand in this, but they would put fake diseases on the board, like, hey, come to the training room and get checked out for whatever disease. It'd be like a 20 letter word or whatever it was, but we'd be lined up to the door, and the doctor would be like, hey, we coming to get tested for whatever, such and such, and they'd be like, what is that? We don't have that today. So they do little things like that. And I remember I was in the DB room, and they sat me down, and it was like, hey, June, you can sit right here. And Lou Holtz walked in the room, and he's like, what you doing sitting in my seat, son? So I'm sitting there like deer in the headlights, and I was like, all right, well, Rod Wilson, he was there that day, so I was like, scoot over, let me sit. He's like, nah, you move, you're in my seat, you move. So, they kind of set me up, but it was funny thinking back on it. But just little things like that. But the hazing and the situation that I'm hearing at Northwestern is just unfortunate. There's no place for that in sports. There's no place for that in any area of life, any realm of life. And that's I think they handled it the right way. There's no way that the coach didn't know about that. Once again, there's no place for that. So like I said, you have to earn your stripes, but you have to respect everybody in the locker room. And my biggest question on that is the leadership side. So there's no way you can be successful as a team, successful as a program, if your leaders on the field, in the locker room, those guys allow that type of stuff to happen. So I'm big on that, and Northwestern really hadn't had too much success, and you kind of look at everything that's going on, it really points in that direction. So I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, I know, like we say the coaches may know, the whole Penn State scandal thing and all that, and even like how that unfolded, and people saying Joe had to know. And I would say Joe knew a lot, but there were some things even I knew about Joe didn't know. Even like going down to the bowl game, we had a situation with some of our teammates ran into a little issue, but the older teammates was able to help us out, but Joe didn't find out about anything like that. So if it would have gotten out, then like, oh, how did Joe let this happen and this and that? And Joe was probably still sleeping. He didn't know what was going on. This is like late at night, and you 19, 20 years old, you're being kids. But I would say the coach, they have a hand in a lot, but also the kids are responsible as well. And if something like that was going on, I think the older athletes would have stepped up and not let something to that extent of what they were talking about. So. Yeah. So I put some ownership on the coaches, but they don't know everything, and some things they do know, and they feel as though they can handle it better than authorities or anybody else. Because I even remember some situations where we had, I'm not going to name any names, but a player was calling, there was harassing someone, so over 1,000 times making phone calls and things like that, and it got back to, but he didn't know about it until the authorities got involved, but he wanted to kind of handle it his way, and he took care of it, and that player continued to do well and eventually graduated and had a good career. But just things like that, and you just never know. You have to, they're still kids, and they're coming out from it. You don't know what environment they're coming from, so you have to have someone there that kind of like guide them. So it's the older players, but you have to have adults there as well.
Yeah. So. And I think that goes back to the leadership aspect of it. Is you got all these guys coming in from different backgrounds, different environments, and people gonna be nervous. People gonna have different outlooks on life. So the purpose of that college coach is to be a leader of men at the end of the day. So that coach is supposed to galvanize that relationship among his team, and then you identify those leaders. And I'll go back to that is, what type of leaders did they have in that locker room to allow that type of stuff to happen? Yeah. Like there's no way you can build a winning culture like that. So unfortunate situation, but I definitely think they're handling it the right way. And we talked about the legendary Joe Paterno, and we talked about Lou Holtz. So we also had some coaches as the game of football evolves. We had coaches that had those old school mentalities. Yeah. So me and you talked about this before the show, but going to those games, we had to have on blazers and we had to have on slacks.
Suits, no facial
Lou Holtz, I won't say he required you to cut your hair, but he really didn't like the dreads and the twist, and so that stuff was, it wasn't really as popular as it is now. So those coaches wanted clean cut players that came to the game with a business type mentality and business type attire. And the whole landscape of college football has changed now to where you have players that have the dreads and different things like that, and you have to allow people to be themselves. So and that's part of the problem. That's a whole nother topic, but we can't get into stereotypes with how people look and how their appearances are. So you have to allow people to be themselves, be comfortable. So that was one thing that came up out of this debate with the whole Northwestern situation, is the Northwestern way. So what type of culture did that coach have there? So once again, you have to be able to adapt and interact and relate to your players. So from that aspect of it, how was that relationship, going back to Joe Paterno, with him being that old school caliber coach, how was that relationship relating to you guys back then when you were playing?
It was the same way, but even my high school, it was, you want to be clean cut, you want to be business like, you go into a game to conduct business, you're not going to play around. So it's like how you approach the game is how you gonna play. So that's how they looked at it. But with Joe, he was saying like clean cut, you got on the blazer, and back then I felt as though it was good and bad. Like you couldn't really express yourself the way you wanted to because you had to fit in if you wanted to play. Yeah. If you're out there being an outlier, you're gonna be on the bench by yourself and wondering why you're not playing, or in the doghouse. So it's kind of like you gotta follow suit. And back then, that's what they thought you had to be to be successful once you got out of college. Yeah. So it was kind of presenting, groom you a certain way. So it was good and it was good and bad. So it worked for some people it didn't, especially depending on what the profession he was going into and stuff like that as well. But I also think just with him, like with Joe, just punctuality, being on time, just things like that. Even like now, like I got to be somewhere 30 minutes early. Yeah. And he was that same way. Just if you're early, you're late, and like you're missing so much opportunities of being late. Like why not be early? Yeah. So he was always that, just show up, just do the right thing. So even like when that whole scandal thing is like, oh, he just cared about winning games. I'm like, Joe wasn't that type of person for me, knowing him for 5 years. I remember Joe would sit you out of a game if you missed class or if you missed breakfast. So you always had to be places on time. He was grooming you to be an adult, be responsible. Yeah. So and it's a limit to where you can groom someone and to where you controlling someone and trying to make them a certain way or make them feel a certain way, and that might not be their culture or what they grew up with. Yeah. So
yeah, and that goes back to, I think we talked about this in episode 1, where you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, but at the same time, those freedoms can be handcuffs if you know, depending on the situation, what type of career you have, what you want to do in life, you have to consider the type of things that you do and how you carry yourself. So, you know, from that Northwestern situation, it's just like I said, it's just unfortunate. In those guys that were coming in, I just don't see as a player on the team how you talk to a recruit and say, hey, come to the University of Northwestern where you gonna get run on, where you gonna be doing naked bear crawls. So
and you also gotta understand the media too, like, and the guy that sent out the meth, like, even though they said it, you don't know if everything is true and things like that too. So you have to wait and kind of sit back and see, because sometimes guys, cause we even had something, I think it was last year, 2 years ago at Penn State, and like, the guy was saying certain things, and like, this guy wasn't getting playing time, he transferred from his bid or things like that too. So you can get upset and write an email or try to get back at someone over a situation as well. So it's like you got to kind of wait and see. And it just this long and not hearing nothing from all those players. And like, we football players, you go into college, somebody doing something like that, like, that ain't happening. Like, so it's like maybe it happened to some people and some people didn't know about it, but I don't know. So
and then of course we in the Twitter era, social media era, so everybody has a cell phone. TMZ has everything, you know, right after it happens. So I'm just kind of surprised that there's no video or no audio or anything of these situations. So once again, not denying anything, definitely not saying I approve of it. But it's just surprising that there's no video footage or anything like that from these allegations once again. And Pat Fitzgerald, he's lawyering up. He's got a lawyer. So, you know, he's looking at his termination as far as how everything was handled. But at the end of the day, they found a lot of information and they confirmed that this stuff happened. So coaches don't know everything, but
they know
to that extent that it happened, I just feel like that's a lot.
And someone has to be held accountable.
Someone has to be held accountable, and you got to respect your teammates. You don't have to like everybody in that locker room that's with you, but you got to respect your teammates. And if you have a broken locker room, you have a broken team, you have a broken mentality, it's hard to have success in that environment.
You can't go win games with people you don't trust.
You can't win games with people that you don't trust. So definitely you got to earn your stripes, though. You got to go out there. So, you know, to all these guys going into these universities, freshmen or whatnot, you might have been the man over here, but when you come in, it's a new team, new mentality. You have to earn the respect of your teammates by the work that you're putting in, both on and off the field. Make sure to stay humble at the same time, and it's a grind. You got to start over again. You got to start from day one. So be prepared to push yourself. You know, learn your teammates, learn their names, learn what they like to do. You know, on those road trips, those locker room stories and those hotel stories, you remember that stuff a lot more than some of the stuff that happened on the field sometimes. So, because you spend a lot of time together with those guys. So, make sure that you treat your teammates the right way. Be respectful. None of this hazing stuff. That was excessive at Northwestern. Like I said, I think they handled it the right way.
And like you said, it's a brotherhood. So you're working together. And with football, you got to have faith, because even like guys might not be starting or in certain situations, but sometimes you got to push through, because you never know how you can turn out. And even my story, and we'll talk about it in another episode, but sometimes you got to have faith and just believe and just keep going forward. Sometimes you can try to jump ship and go somewhere else, and it might be worse. You just never know what you're going into. So if people talk about the grass green on the other side, sometimes it's better to water yours.
And everybody in that locker room puts in work, right? Everybody's practicing together. Everybody's doing the same workouts. Everybody's doing everything. So
we know the politics and being from certain areas and knowing people that went there before, and so we got a lot of episodes coming up, so we definitely dive into that, the politics, and even next episode we probably touch on high school and how these kids are getting held back and things like that with the parents, and like, what's it really about? So how you doing what's best for your kids?
Once again, make sure y'all following us on social media. We're gonna be posting questions out here. So we just posted a question about reclassification. So we got kids being, you know, we called it held back, failing, whatever you want to call it, but now it's got more technical, where we calling it reclassification for athletic purposes. So we want to hit on that. We want to talk about that. So definitely chime in on social media. Make sure y'all following us. Make sure y'all liking. Make sure y'all subscribing. PCP family, we want to expand this brand. We want to look out for you, as I stated. If you have a business, locally, internationally, like, subscribe, follow, drop your business name in there, and we'll give you a shout out. So PCP family, I know it's been a minute. We'll be back. We have some special guests coming on these next episodes moving forward, so make sure you check in with us. We got some former college and NFL players coming through with the PCP, so make sure you stay in contact with us. And Rodney, I'll let you shout out where they can find us at again.
As earlier, like I said, you can find us on Twitter at Palmetto Crew, YouTube at Palmetto Crew, and you can send us any emails, comments, anyone you'd like to have us on the show or talk about, or just look into, or just see what they're up to now. Just let us know. You can send us an email at palmettocrew@gmail.com.
All right, PCP signing off. PCP family, we love you. We'll see you next time. Peace.